Hi guys, it's Mr. Vince. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that you guys should listen to.
Hey, SpongeBob!
That was fun.
Anyways, so continuing on with my little talk, in this video I will actually inform you guys some stuff, a story and all, so hopefully you guys have a fantastic day, and without further ado, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So the story I will be talking about is basically my career, my successions, and all kinds of goals that I've been wanting in the past couple of years. So let's just get right into it without wasting any more time. Also, before I continue to do so, feel free to subscribe and leave a like as well. It'll definitely help me a lot. So let's go ahead and get started. So a couple years ago, my passion was to be an astronaut. And the reason why I wanted to be an astronaut is because I really wanted to explore the moon. And that was basically something I really wanted to be when I grow up. Because being an astronaut sounds very scientific and also extremely important. Because if you become an astronaut, you have to take so many responsibilities in case you can cause any harm or your own self into dangerous stuff that you may not want to encounter. And I apologize for some of my grammar. It's kind of bad, but let's just get right into it. Eventually, though, the career to be an astronaut probably screwed around. I decided to be different things. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be other things than just an astronaut. But the thing is, I'm not really into being those kind of things when I experience video games. And the main point is that I really wanted to be a gamer. Because being a gamer is a very big passion for me nowadays. And I don't think it will change in my entire life. It could change a little bit, but basically it's not really going to change a lot. So just keep that in mind. So my biggest dream is to actually become extremely popular one day, have so many subscribers and all kinds of followers over on different social medias. That is basically the main goal, not for greed, but also for entertainment and fabulous entertainment that you guys might find extremely exciting than just finding videos and just making them fake or clickbait for greed. So my biggest passion is to make sure that I carefully make the stuff I make, and I have to make best decisions as well as responsibilities, making sure everything is working perfectly fine, and we can just continue today with that, right? So alongside with that, I also decided to make Life on the Moon because I experienced, 5th grade science. 5th grade science, when I was in 5th grade, it was fun. I liked 5th grade science. I learned about the solar system, and that's how Life on the Moon was created, because I learned about the solar system. And I thought it would be a great idea to make a game where the moon is technically terraformed, which means it supports life, and not entirely made out of grass and water, but basically a game where you can live on the moon, you can roleplay, you can fight others, all that. And that dream came true back in 2019, and I loved the game itself. But there was only one major flaw with the game. It was extremely buggy. Eventually, 2 months later, it was replaced by the minigame elevator, and eventually the game was entirely canceled because of that. The main reason why Life on the Moon got canceled was not the minigame elevator, but was actually because of a bug where shops didn't properly work. But it was patched in the new Life on the Moon, so that's good to hear. And then Life on the Moon pretty much died out for about a year and a half, and there was no explanations on the game itself. So that was the death of Life on the Moon. But it wasn't until sometime later in 2020 when Life on the Moon finally came back to life. It was known as the revival of Life on the Moon, or as people call it, the sequel of the original Life on the Moon. But let's just go ahead and continue on, shall we? So I know I made that last recording a couple hours ago, and obviously I wanted to return back and just make this video without wasting a lot of time, but let's just go ahead and move on. Life on the Moon re-released on March 5th, 2021, and it wasn't on a bad start, it wasn't on a good start, it was okay, and it didn't went too horrible. Again, like the previous one, it was much more buggy, but it wasn't too buggy because it was playable and didn't contain a lot of bugs. But as updates pushed even further up to the max, Life on the Moon started to become better and just felt much easier to use, rather than just being extremely basic, boring, and just didn't feel that well. and I'm glad I've been making updates, and I'm still proceeding to continue on with those cool updates. Eventually, though, it wasn't until 1.0.3, and updates didn't really release much anymore because of a giant update. But it wasn't too bad. 1.1 actually went on a really good start, and it only took about a month for the update to release, which was actually a pretty long time, but it wasn't too long. It almost took 2 months, but with that being said, that was pretty impressive. And I know that kind of sucks, but hey, on the bright side of things, that was a pretty good and a pretty decent thing that could happen. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about is 1.2. So some of you were wondering what 1.2 happened and why it wasn't released yet. Well, 1.2 didn't happen because there were so many things I had to develop through the update. So I pushed out smaller updates within the 1.1 era, making sure you guys understand that Life and was still being updated. And the last update that will actually be released before 1.2 is officially ready is 1.1.4.3.1. Like I said, 1.1.4.3.1 will be the last 1.1 update before 1.2 releases, but 1.1.5 will be released when 1.2 releases and gets ready to be launched because of a live event. And you guys are probably excited for that, so let's just hope that it doesn't go too bad. Now, I'm expecting 1.2 to be ready in 2022, so expect that, my friends. And alongside 1.1.4.3 will be about 1.2. It has half of the content from 1.2, but still kept some of the stuff into the game because not all the content was, carried over from 1.2 to 1.1.4.3. So just keep that in mind. But now, let's go ahead and talk about how I started YouTube. And I know a lot of you wanted to hear this, so let's get started. So the reason why I started YouTube was actually a very good story. So about almost 5 years ago at this point, on July 11, 2017, my brother, and yes, I do have a brother, had showed me how to use YouTube, like signed in Google, all that kind of stuff. And it was a miracle because having YouTube is basically how I can make popularity, and that is what I do today. And I want to thank my brother for that because he definitely helped me a lot. So yeah, big shout out to my brother. And if he's watching this, I want to thank you, man. I really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and just move on. Unfortunately, though, I didn't do YouTube that much because of some weird stuff happening and all that. I'm not going to really explain it that much. But yes, I have not done YouTube a lot because of that. But eventually, in 2018, I went back to doing YouTube, and I started doing it more frequently. And it's been a great time at starting YouTube. But now, let's go ahead and talk about Roblox. And why did I start playing Roblox? How did it happen? Well, it was a good tragic story. Some of you probably watched my birthday video a couple months ago, and I talked about all kinds of shenanigans. So if you guys didn't pay attention, well, I can probably explain you guys about it again. So how did I actually start playing Roblox was a very devastating story to talk about. So in May 2017, I've got a new Kindle, and I was super excited to use it, and I know it's been a great time using it. I loved it very much. But just a couple weeks after I got it, I just found out that Roblox was an app that I could download on the Kindle. And how did it happen was unbelievable. So back then, I used to figure out how to play Pokemon, and it was something I wanted to play because at the time I had really liked Pokemon. And as of today, I'm still a pretty big fan of it. I like the music that the composers made. I actually really enjoyed the Gens 1, 2, and 3 variants, as well as Gen 5s, because they sound fantastic. I love it. But the other gens were pretty good, but they just weren't the best. So that's why I like the music that the Pokemon people make. And I still listen to it up to this day, for those wondering. But let's go ahead and talk about that. So, yes, I've been trying to figure out how to get Pokemon stuff, and unfortunately, it was a big failure, but eventually I figured out how. But not only that, I also found out Roblox, and how I didn't actually kind of remember, but at the same time, I did kind of remember. So, Roblox was an app I downloaded, and I thought it was all about Pokemon and all that, and eventually I logged And eventually I just signed up. I had to take that moment and just think about what I should say next. So I apologize for that. And again, my grammar's still kind of annoying. So I'm going to apologize for that. So I signed up and I did it a couple times because at the time I just wasn't smart enough to know what I should do. But eventually I know what to do nowadays and it's fun. And I had a game that I played called Jailbreak. I don't actually remember what my first game was, but I always thought that Jailbreak was the first game I've ever played. It could have been Meep City, but I don't actually remember because back then Jailbreak used to be extremely popular. Now, I'm not saying Jailbreak is not popular anymore. Jailbreak is still pretty popular, but not as popular as it was back then because Jailbreak was a huge hit, and I understand that a lot of you want Jailbreak to be popular again. If only Steam and Bad CC actually pushed out the very good updates instead of the casual updates. And no offense, but I think they should do more content each update and also rely on the big bugs that they should patch instead of just relying on some small ones that were new released. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't fix them, I'm saying they do need to rely more on their updates and making sure everything is working right. And monthly updates are fine. I can understand that monthly updates can be acceptable, but I think that they should definitely push out more of the good updates as well. So that's what I think they should do instead of just making pretty small updates each month. But let's go ahead and just move on, shall we? So alongside with that, Jailbreak was a passion I've played, and I've always wanted to play Jailbreak. And it took me 2.5 years to finally get something that could actually handle Jailbreak. And that was an iPad. And I was super, super excited to play Jailbreak after so long. And this is the video that is playing for those wondering. And that's how I played Jailbreak, and I still do today. But unfortunately, there were some steeps that I've made, some bad things that are going to happen, and all of that. And unfortunately, I can't really play Jailbreak that frequently. Number one was because it was boring. Number two, it got much worse, at least for some people. And three, I don't think there's a lot of video ideas I thought about Jailbreak. But back then, I would just play it so much because I had to grind a lot. And that's how I got the Bugatti Veyron, not the Lamborghini, not all that shenanigans we know and love today. But the Bugatti Veyron, the Mini Cooper, the Mustang, and all that. And that's how I got the good stuff, right? But let's go back to my YouTube content. So what kind of content did I make? Well, it was Future source system content. It was good. I liked it. It was super popular back then, but nowadays it's not as popular as it was today. Well, except for one person named Colin Mapping. For some of you who do not know who he was actually a famous Future source system YouTuber, and I think he still is today. But recently, I have not really done much on those kind of videos, but I still really enjoyed making them. And I haven't really done a lot. I thought it was going to be the end, but I still occasionally make them, but it was super rare for me to make them. But let's go ahead and talk about the content. So I started making Roblox content in late 2019. It's actually September. That's when I started making the content, and it was a great experience. I liked making it, and it felt really good. But it wasn't as popular as the Future source system videos because they were less entertaining to my original fans. And most of my fans that actually subscribed back then probably already unsubscribed or something, or just didn't find my YouTube channel interesting. So just keep that in mind. And alongside, my personalities did change back then as well as they did today. Because back then, my personalities were very different. I was much more selfish. I didn't actually rob of a lot of people. But nowadays, I rob with a couple. And I obviously rob with some of the good friends, like the buddies. Pretty much everyone I meet are considered friends or buddies because they think everyone's a great friend. Even if they're not nice, I think everyone shares and deserves to be respected. Because if they're not respected, I don't know who you are, but I don't think it's necessary to disrespect them. You should never do that. Am I right? So that's why I think people are friends. But back then, I just treat them poorly. Some of them. Most of them I also treated poorly because I wasn't a good person back then. At least online and all that, but today I'm pretty good. And I've been pretty decent on, some of the good stuff and all that. Even in real life, I am a good person. I don't treat people poorly, and I've been helping out a lot. I'm not too selfish anymore. I've been feeling selfless. I've been helping people out, making them smile, and just having a great time, honestly. So that's how my personality's changed. It definitely started to make a turnaround in 2020 when I figured out that I definitely needed to be, much more mature than just being super, super immature and all that. But today, I still kind of feel toxic, which means being pretty disrespectful, selfish, but not as much as I did back then. So I'm pretty impressed. Been working my hardest to make sure I don't feel too much toxic in myself. So that way, you guys can definitely feel nice and comfortable without having to make me feel uncomfortable. So that's very, very nice. But let's go ahead and go on to the last thing for this video. And that is the development of my games and all that. And for some of you who do not know, I do work on my games. And what's going on is that, well, I used to develop games. And as of today, I still do. So the first ever game I've made on Roblox Studio was kind of unforgettable, but it also was super hard to remember. And I kind of remembered what it was. So it was late 2017, and the account Squirtle is the Ultra, for those unaware. That was the second ever Roblox account I have had. And it was very, very, very basic, had free models, and at the time I just didn't know how to use Studio. And as of today, I am extremely talented at using it, although I still am not good with a lot of the scripts. But I definitely know how to easily script nowadays. Because back then, I was a terrible developer. Not saying I'm the worst. I just think that I need to improve more. And that's what I've been doing ever since 2020. Because I actually get to use my laptop now. And that was the case until, well, late 2020. And I got myself a computer that can officially work on my games without a lot of lag, which was pretty successful, but also a failure. So going back to my games, I made a lot of games back then, and as of today, I still make various games. It all thanks to my brain, and my brain thinks a lot of the good stuff. So that's why I've been making some of the greatest games that you guys might find entertaining. But of course, it's not as popular because, well, let's think about this. Games is not a singular noun, it's a plural noun. And I said it's because I thought it was just one game, but there's multiple. I can't say it right. Most of my games are not as popular as they are today because, well, people don't tend to find my games entertaining. And I understand that there's other games they could play and all that, and they may not find it interesting, but let's just keep that in mind. Making a Roblox game sounds very passionate, and I think it's a great idea to make the best games you can make. Because if you make a Roblox game, then you're going to feel pretty good about it, and you'll feel comfortable when you do develop more on the game. Now, there are times where you felt kind of, stiff with the game and having some difficulties, but just never give up. Because if you give up, I don't know why you give up. Never ever give up on something you do. Because if you give up, that's not a good thing. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's video. That is basically a pretty large story. That was actually an extremely long story, let's be real. If you enjoyed, you can leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss a video. And even if you dislike, well, it doesn't really matter because at this point, dislikes are just poof, they're gone. It'll just say dislike. As always, have a great day. My name is Mr. Vince, and I'm going to see you guys in the next video, and happy Thanksgiving.